reimagining together from an extractive age to a new era. I want to begin by offering a short quote by Naomi Klein. In This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate, Naomi Klein writes, quote, "Our economic system and our planetary system are now at war. Or, more accurately, our economic system is at war with many forms of life on Earth, including human life. What the climate needs to avoid collapse is a contraction in humanity's use of resources. What our economic model demands to avoid collapse is unfettered expansion. Only one of these sets of rules can be changed, and it is not the laws of nature." End quote. The climate crisis is a daunting reality, and we are all called to face it. As Naomi Klein puts it, our economic system and our planetary system are at war. And it's not just any war. Our economic system thrives on relentless growth, while the planet calls for contraction in our use of resources. It's a collision course. Nature's laws are not negotiable. They demand balance, or we face collapse. This past week, Hurricane Helen ravaged many parts of the East Coast, and mere weeks before that, there were tornadoes, and next week, who knows? The systems we rely on to track and predict these storms are failing us. Hurricanes are growing more destructive with stronger winds and wider paths of devastation. Climate scientists have even suggested the need for new categories 6 or 7 to capture their ferocity. Beyond the winds, these storms are producing record rainfall, storm surges, and displacement impacting millions of people. Right now, the United Nations estimates that 21.5 million people are already climate refugees. By 2050, that number could rise to 1.5 billion. It's staggering and almost unthinkable reality. We, as people, are creations of the planet, children of our earth ancestor, and we cannot rewrite her laws of nature, but we do have choices. We can continue with the unsustainable expansion that will lead us to disaster, or we can imagine renewal, commit to those imaginings, act on it. Unitarian Universalism, though a small movement, is part of something much larger, a global movement to address the climate crisis. Y'all saw that map earlier. We're a part of it. We are a spark. We're a spark of it. Y'all, we are not alone in our efforts for change, and by working together, we increase the chances that this crisis can be mitigated. Climate activist McKibben reminds us that even though we may not be able to stop global warming completely, we can survive it. And I'll go on to say that we, being people, I say people with song and spirit who will bring this energy to fights, we can maybe even thrive in the face of it. Hope is not about certainties. It's about doing the best that we can, inspiring one another and taking action no matter the odds. In that inspiring one another, that means bringing your whole creative selves, yourselves that sing, yourselves that dance, yourselves that make art in the face of fighting. That's what taking action no matter the odds looks like. Catherine Hale, a renowned climate scientist, says that the most important thing we can do to fight climate change is talk about it. Not just with data and facts, but through our shared values. An example of this was reflected in a story that I heard other mentions of about just yesterday, when a more conservative person who didn't care about climate justice but loves to garden, they were together and they pointed out that the climate crisis is changing the plants that they can grow and altering favorite sightseeing nature spots. That common love of land and gardening opened up a conversation about climate change that they couldn't have before. As a person that can get really gung-ho and passionate about climate change, sometimes I can find myself getting annoyed when people are like, oh, my such and such kind of plants couldn't flower. But then when I learned about this small example, it helped me remember that every single thing is a point of connection that can bring about the change we wish to seek. Of course, while our individual efforts are important, they won't be enough by themselves. And I gotta say this. The real damage is being done by corporations prioritizing short-term profits over people's lives. These corporations spend billions to make their voices heard in policy making, but our voices matter too, and we use them when we vote. Most of us know that severe weather events make it much more difficult for low-income and poor people to vote. We know that trans youth are often abandoned by their families and that BIPOC people are disproportionately impacted by being displaced by, climate gentrification as extraordinarily wealthy, mostly white folks take over geographic areas less likely to be as susceptible to the ravages of climate change. I had to make sure that I say this. In our knowing, members of this community came together to be a greater spark to change the tides of voter registration among historically underrepresented populations. And I need to give a shout out that a total of 63 UUCT members and their friends wrote over 3,000 Reclaim Our Vote postcards to BIPOC voters in Georgia. That's a big deal, yes. And these notes, they urged folks to not only vote, but consider reproductive rights, affordable housing, healthcare, good jobs, and public school systems. This is a vote for intersectional climate justice. We are not single-issue people, and the threats to our environment require an intersectional approach to address it. And this is where I'm getting to closing. And to that end, yesterday, about 25 members and friends gathered in our sanctuary for day one of our climate revival. It wasn't a time for despair. It was a time for renewal. We were invited to dream about a future transformed, and that exercise rekindled my hope. It inspired my words today. It reminded me of the beauty we can create together. If we had more time, I would share that invitation with you now to go into a meditative space, but instead I encourage you to stay after service and join the organizing hour at 12:30 instead of doing the lovely meditation that I would have offered, as well as the reflection exercise that is the Climate Justice Reimagined. That would have been the next slide. I think that there will be a pretty cool activity if you join in on the organizing hour. So in my closing, I wanna just say that in yesterday's revival, some of the dreams that we shared included beautiful possibilities, affordable housing managed by communities and different campuses, like school campuses and our church campuses filled with native plants that also are sources of food for ourselves and the community at large. There were so many things that were shared, and none of it is impossible. As Unitarian Universalists, we have long understood that our work is here and now to bind up what is broken, to roll up our sleeves and to help bring about a more beautiful world into being. So in the spirit of that dream, I invite you to once more either say the words if you remember them or repeat them in your mind. Let us reimagine together a future where climate justice has love at its center. Thank you.